Hey y'all, it's Mandy. Before we talk about this week's episode, I want to say shout out to the patrons. Y'all are the reason I'm still doing this. I could do it alone, but it's so much better to run with people who share your vision, share your values, and see the importance of the work you're doing. So if you're interested in all the premium content, hearing about the questions and answers, or even being a part of our live patron chats, check out my Patreon. It's under @MandyCapehart, or you can search for Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart and find it that way. Welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. You are listening to episode 92, titled, But What If You Knew Yourself Even Better? Our conversation this week is coming from the world of business. Although I tend to encourage to move us away from strongly cognitive practices during grief work, this time we're going to embrace one that you may not recognize as a powerful technique for grievers. It can be easy for us to obsess over and ruminate on thoughts and strategies to move through grief. So rather than fight it, we're going to embrace the tendency and try it with some intention. When business leaders recognize an opportunity for growth, they will often employ what we call a SWOT analysis. That's SWOT. And yes, it's an acronym, so don't worry about having to remember a ton of complex details around this practice. Before we get into it, I want to invite you to remember a concept that we talked about a long time ago on the show called the locus of control. This concept asks us to reflect on the sense of agency we feel in our own lives. Are we able to control things around us or inside us? This is a spectrum, so don't feel like you are explicitly external or internal locus of control. See, someone with an internal locus of control will believe that they are a great influence over the things that happen in their lives. Their abilities, their actions, or their mistakes impact what they experience. Someone with a more external locus of control is going to feel that life is much more random, placing responsibility for the events they experience on environmental factors, chance, or even other people. This is an important thing to reflect on because as we look at our lives through this SWOT analysis framework, it can be really easy to lose sight of who is truly responsible for our life experience. There will always be people in our lives who make choices that affect us, and we can't help that, but we can shift how we respond internally and externally for our benefit. If you're taking notes, the letters of the acronym stand for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. A solid SWOT analysis is going to look at these in two phases, the internal and the external. For this to be a meaningful exercise, you have to get really honest. It is very easy to create a subjective response to these questions and begin to embody a victim mentality that struggles to recognize the things happening to us are not always about us. That also does not mean that the awful things that happen around us are happening for us. I am not the coach who reframes trauma and wounding for the purpose of a successful program. Your motivation has to come from an internal fire that relies only on you to maintain. Pretending the traumas in our life were a gift or the motivator for growth is a dismissive, small understanding of what integration and healing look like long term. So, back on track, phase one of a SWOT analysis is the internal approach where we assess our capabilities to identify our strengths and our weaknesses. This is easy in a corporate setting because we have parameters and reports and measuring tools. So, how do we do this as grievers? Well, think about the things you've offered yourself through your grieving process that felt like a warm hug. What have you done really well for your own mind, heart, body, and spirit? If you've listened to this show for any duration of time, that counts. You maybe decided to cut back on caffeine because you noticed your racing heart wasn't helping your anxiety around death, and that counts too. This process doesn't have to take days. It doesn't even need to take hours. You can take 15 minutes to reflect on the things you've done well and the areas you feel solid within around capturing your own attention and bringing it back to the present when grief gets noisy. In the same way, what are areas in your grief process where you need extra support? Maybe you're really good at noticing your thoughts being unhelpful, but you're not sure what to do with them. Maybe you fully understand the logical and rational experience of grief, but you've mostly insulated yourself against any outward expression of what you might feel in response to loss. Or maybe you've placed your physical self on the back burner, not paying any attention to the nourishment you deserve. Or maybe you don't even realize that your body deserves nourishment. Once you've identified the internal areas of strengths and weaknesses, or as I would much rather call them, areas for growth, then you move into phase two. This phase is externally focused and often a very easy place for grievers to think about because we are used to assessing our surroundings and other people for threats. In this phase, you want to determine what, if any, external factors are impacting your ability to heal. This isn't a chance to lay blame on others or become emotionally inflamed about the way others need you. This is about remaining objective and observing your life for opportunities to shift or for so called threats that need to be eliminated. I think we have a pretty good idea of what would qualify as an opportunity, but let's examine threats for a moment. In business, they're somewhat clear. If the bottom line is impacted negatively, then it's a threat toward the success of the business. So, how do you measure your own bottom line? How can you determine if something is truly a threat to your flourishing or if it's just annoying and you don't like it? You have to have a grasp on your purpose, which is something we truly lose sight of when we grieve. In our culture, our sense of self is conflated with the things we like to do and the people we want to be around. It's often an externally defined sense of self and purpose that can change in an instant, thanks, as you know, to death, dying, and grief. Which means that in order to truly understand what would be considered a threat, we have to understand what internal sense of self and purpose is being threatened. Again, someone threatening our living situation, like housing loss, a job, or our family, are obvious threats, and that's not what we're talking about here. But what in your life do you encounter outside of yourself, or even thoughts and feelings and behaviors of your own that you've internalized that threaten your confidence in the deep knowing of who you are? No one wants to admit that they don't know themselves very well, and it makes sense. That's a vulnerable thing to recognize at any age, but especially for those of us who are out of our 20s. We were supposed to have found ourselves by now, right? And then it remains static, so we can easily exist. I'm actually glad that that's not true at all, because the person I was in my 20s and even in my early 30s was not close to the person I dreamed about becoming. And yet, when I tell you that I believed everything about myself was brilliant and wonderful and excellent in my 20s and early 30s, it's true. And I am now. My sense of self isn't impacted by the external things I produce. But now I can look back at the younger me who wanted to belong and contribute and was searching for a sense of purpose and have compassion for her and the way she went about it. She did the best she could with what she knew. And now she knows better, including knowing herself better. And so now that I know myself even better and I can reflect honestly on my own strengths and weaknesses, I have more opportunity to embody myself with intention. My internal arenas for growth aren't as scary because I'm no longer worried about how others will respond to me, nor am I scared that the facade of perfection around my life will crack. As we work through our grief, our sense of self should be deepening. Our confidence grows the more we hear our own voices grow steady as we advocate for what we need. Just like you deserve nourishment in your whole self, you deserve to know that even when you face another loss, you will not be destroyed. Rather, you will be able to apply the newfound understanding of your internal purpose and sense of self. You will trust that you know what you need, know what you don't need, and how to create space to pursue the opportunities for growth and healing that are right in front of you. Thank you for listening to episode 92 of Restorative Grief. Although this technique can be incredibly useful, like all tools, it has limitations. We may need to put more weight behind pursuing an opportunity than we do limiting a threat. Additionally, this tool cannot be used well in isolation. Think of this as a quick flyover recon that you might need to gain a lay of the land before you introduce other grief support tools and techniques. And this is actually a great way for clients of mine to also determine areas where they could use some coaching support, which, of course, I'm a huge fan of learning more about. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome, and thank you for making time for it. I hope this very practical and linear tool reveals meaningful opportunities for growth and change in your own grief process. If you want to learn more about the offerings here at Restorative Grief Coaching, visit mandykapehart.com/coaching or reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram at @mandykapehart. Hearing your stories is one of my favorite things about being on social media. And so while I will not coach you through DMs, I'm happy to connect. And I always have openings available in my practice for someone that needs it. As always, please leave a 5-star review and make sure you subscribe to the show so you don't miss any of my weekly episodes. Also, I want to say thanks to all my patrons and premium subscribers for continuing to support this work. It means the world to have you behind me. And before we go, as always, one last thing. Please remember, the only solution for grief is to do the work of grieving. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.